Hey, how's it going, everyone? And welcome back to our Lovecraft recap, or Lovecraft Country. I always say Lovecraft, but I never say the country part of it. Anyways, welcome back to our Lovecraft Country review and recap show over here on the FilmSpeak channel, where we break down the latest episodes of the latest HBO hit series, Lovecraft Country. I'm, of course, your host, Griffin Schiller, and here at FilmSpeak, we like to say that the conversation continues after the credits, and so this is an extension of that. And if you'd like to be a part of that conversation, you're definitely in the right place. Consider subscribing to the channel for more insight, analysis, and interviews behind your favorite entertainment. So we're going to be talking about episode number 8, titled Jig-a-Bobo, and it is things are coming to a head here. There's a lot that went down in this episode, and we're gonna break it down for you all here. So before we go any further here, though, be sure to let us know your thoughts and opinions on tonight's episode down in the comments section below. Let's have a great conversation discussing the theories, the implications of tonight's episode, and all that good stuff. I'm joined, as always, though, by Elliott from Movie Files. Elliott, how's it going, buddy?
Good, man. We were just talking off camera, man. It's that time of the year, man. It's 60 degrees out here in St. Louis. Got my long sleeve clothing on and socks on. It's the leaves are changing, man. It's a great time. But yeah, man, excited to talk about this episode, which had a lot going on, which could have went one way, but I think it went for the best. So we're very excited to break it all down with you today, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm telling you, man, I am jealous of that weather. I really am. I miss sweater weather. I miss the fall season. You don't get that here in 100-degree Los Angeles. So, but yeah, so let's I guess start diving into this thing. I guess sort of like there was a lot that went down in tonight's episode, and it definitely feels like things this season are starting to come to fruition, come to a head. All of these story arcs and plot threads that we were sort of like scratching our heads about are starting to, combine to, make up the climax of this of this story and whatnot. Yeah. And I think what you said was interesting. It's an episode that could have gone, one of two ways. It could have been convoluted with too much going on, feeling overstuffed, or the way in which it went, it felt like they're really ramping up to something that's going to be great. And I absolutely loved tonight's episode. I don't know. I really like that episode with Gia. That might still be my favorite, and the one with Ruby too. But this is up there. This is really, really good. And I think this is what I think a lot of people were hoping to get out of the show, just in terms of continuity and just like getting answers to questions and stuff like that, but then also playing into that Lovecraftian horror side of it. But Elliott, what are your overall thoughts on tonight's episode?
Man, so the biggest thing, as the weeks went by, this is the episode this one and the next one I've been circling just based on the title alone. Number one, this one was obviously, it made me a little nervous when you have such a, the Emmett Till thing. We know that he popped up very early on in the season. What are they going to do with Emmett Till? Are they going to recreate what happened? Are they going to even address it? And this was the episode where I was just like, Misha Green, she wrote it, she directed it. This is tough, man. This is one of those situations where it can go, like I said, one or two ways. And I think they didn't just use the Jig-a-Bobo which is a racial slur. They didn't just use, the Emmett Till as just a backdrop and just never really addressing it. Throughout the episode, they continuously talked about the trauma and the pain that Black people were going through, and just how brutally just disgusting that act was that happened to that young man back in 1955. So I really appreciate that Misha Green never just used that just to have it as a framing device, as a shocking title, and never really addressed what was going on in America. And I like that she had that as a through line. And as we'll talk about in this review, how people deal with something like that, especially in the times we live in with George Floyd, with protesting, looters, and how you should feel about the situation, how some people don't feel any remorse, don't feel any guilt, don't feel bad for what's going on. So this episode really was like what this show kind of alluded to in this first episode, in handling the racial implications of the Jim Crow era, but also tying into where we are in society now. I think this episode did an incredible job of doing so. Plus, you get monsters and you get all the other stuff that we got. So this episode to me was like the best of both worlds from episode 1 and my least favorite episode 2, which was magic heavy. But this time the magic kind of ties into the story. So very, very impressed by this episode, to say the least.
Yeah, and I think while Dee wasn't the central focus of this film, they did spend a lot of time following her, and I think because of the death of Immortel, it kind of helped shift the focus to her being a young black girl growing up in this area, and no one really believing her or listening to her or anything like that. When she's crying out for help and against these injustices that are sort of following her. And I think the brilliant thing about it was how they kind of played off of that by having these two white cops who we obviously know they're part of like whatever the order is. They have their own agenda going on, but take that out of the equation. These two white cops, the white manifestation of Eva and Topsy from Uncle Tom's Cabin, having that stigma follow her around and haunt her. It's not even like her personal demon or her personal monster. It is the monster that white people have sort of bestowed upon her. And I thought that, and her being, and obviously they're caricatures, right? Like in the book and everything, they are just racial drawings, that are supposed to make white people feel better about what's happening. Or, whatever.
Again, hints to that title, Jig-a-Bobo. It's a racial slur of like a stereotypical black person, what they think of black people. So it ties into the thread of the name of the episode for sure.
Right, and so when you have these, I don't want to say they're caricatures. Well, I guess they kind of are. They're like racial caricatures or something like that. When you have these drawings that have manifested into real life monsters following Dee, who is a comic book artist and a drawer herself. I feel like that just adds like another layer of thought that was really just powerful to me. And while I loved all of that was going on with her and what it was saying from like a thematic standpoint and a commentary standpoint, I do feel as though when we reached the end of the episode, it was just sort of repeating the same thing over and over again. It never got to a point where there was like a revelation or there was a resounding sort of like punctuation mark on the statement that was being made. And maybe that'll carry over into next week's episode because obviously we are kind of left on a little bit of a cliffhanger. But that was maybe my only gripe with that whole thing because I loved it. This was one of the first times in the episode I was genuinely terrified because of that. And so I thought Misha Green did an excellent job of just like bringing out the horror elements again to accent the real life horrors of what was going on during the Jim Crow era.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And then again, this, like you just said up top, as most of the central episodes have been focusing on, whether it be Gia, Ruby, Tick and Leti, this one was out of the focused character episodes. We didn't, like you said, we didn't really get that necessarily pay off at the end of this episode, but it can carry over to the next episode. But what I also found interesting, I don't know if I've only listened to a couple of the episodes, but they have that podcast after the episode premieres on HBO Max or HBO feed on the Apple, whatever. But they discussed that Hippolyta might not be coming back, which I thought was very interesting because I took that ending of last week's episode as her choosing her path to go back to Earth to protect her daughter and all this, but apparently she's not coming back. And they even said so in the beginning of the episode, the funeral, it's been a week since last week's episode, as Tick says to Leti, and they don't know where she is. So I feel so bad for Dee, man. Like she loses her father. She now lost her best friend in Emmett, and now her mother's gone. So there's a lot of trauma on this young girl, and it will be interesting to see what comes of what happened to her at the end of this episode with being essentially, infected by this spell that has been chasing her and Lancaster casted on her. So yeah, man, I feel bad for her. I don't know what's going to come of Dee next week or in the future episodes.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that might be a thread that they have to explore in like a second season. Maybe Hippolyta doesn't even return until season 2.
Yeah. Which is another thing. I don't know if this show is coming back for a season 2, as if it's a Watchmen limited series type of thing, or the success of it is like, because there's no book to follow up with, is just gonna, what is the continuation if there is one?
But I also think that it is a show where they've taken so many creative liberties that they could figure out a way to do a second season or something like that. But that is an interesting point because I mean, who knows? Part of me feels like it would be better as just a one-off, like limited series like this.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I mean, again, there's so much more that they can explore, and I guess going off of that, there was a nice little meta commentary specifically in this episode, where they kind of addressed the alternate reality that the show is in versus the reality that takes place in I guess Lovecraft Country, the book, which we discover is written by George Freeman, who is Atticus and Leti's son.
Yeah, which was a great moment, right? Because we all assume when we saw that little cliffhanger last, that was George Freeman, Uncle George that we know, that it was some alternate universe where he wrote this book or whatever the case was. But no, it was Tix and Leti's son who wrote this book and telling his family legacy. So that was awesome. I love that moment, and I wonder if we'll see the scene of Tick going to the portal, seeing his son, seeing whoever took him out of the portal. So that was a really nice moment. That was really cool, talking about the differences between the book and the show, and a very meta, cool moment to say the least. Yeah,
and there was a great line in there when they were talking about basically the whole episode. I'm trying to look through my notes here, but basically the whole episode, there were people, all of the main characters here, Leti, Tick, Ruby, Christina, everyone is sort of after magic for different reasons. Obviously, Christina wants to obtain immortality, which is something that she was never granted with, or she was never given access to because she was a woman growing up in the Sons of Adam, and she wants to attain what her father was never able to do, sort of just in spite of him and stuff like that. But then we see Ruby wants she wants magic for her own purposes because she's tired of living in this world where she can't get anywhere as a black woman, and and not even just a black woman, but she's also a heavier black woman, and so there's another sort of stigma that goes against her there. And I think the stuff between her and Christina in this episode I found to be incredibly powerful, because in the wake of this tragedy that's going on, she came to Christina / William, and whatnot. And she transformed into I'm blanking on her name. What's her name again?
Adele.
When she decided to have sex with Christina, and then through that, she obviously sort of transformed back into Ruby and stuff like that. And then her reasoning was that she wanted to feel closer to the I guess the comfort and privilege of white people, but she, it's just sort of like a distraction to what's going on, but she felt sort of guilty about it. And then we have Christina basically saying no, I think you're, she's basically calling out her false rage and stuff, and that she wants to, she has selfish interests that she wants to appease and whatnot.
Yeah, that scene, man. So first and foremost, Christina has been that looming figure that we've seen her pop in and out of episodes, have some great kind of moments. But this, to me, was a great Christina episode as well, in regards to really calling out, like you just said, Ruby, and kind of her not to say false narrative or false emotions, but just calling out you may have some raw emotions right now, but you had intentions. You want something from this relationship as well. As we see from all of these characters, regardless of how we feel about them, our heroes, they're all selfish. I mean, even my favorite character, Letitia, there's a scene where Dee is literally saying she needs help. She's being chased by monsters. Can you help me? But Letty's in her own situation with what's going on with Tick and her baby, and she's just so narrow focused on her situation. So all these characters have their own agendas, have their own selfish reasons of doing what they're doing. But yeah, that scene, man, with Christina and Ruby, all the dialogue that they were having within this entire episode, but in particular in this scene, was just incredible. And you touched on it, the sex scene, which this show has not shied away from sex at all, which, you come to expect that from HBO. But that visual effect, I think, is one of the most impressive scenes I've seen regarding when her skin is coming off and while she's having sex. Well, I'm like, this is on another level of just incredible visual effects. And also, like you pointed, that undertone of she didn't want to have sex. She didn't want to be a black woman sleeping with a white man in this time, which just again kind of goes to the psyche of just this, where her head is at. I thought that all this stuff was just beautiful, but Christina really did a great job in this episode. All the secret meetings she had with all of our characters.
She was sort of just episode. Continuing to spin her web and everything, and basically getting the pictures of Titus's pages. and then also the key from Tick and whatnot. I mean, she's using everyone, but also like Leti and Tick are using her to get what they want. But
Ruby as well, though. Ruby's playing her as well.
Right, of course, Ruby for sure. But I think the interesting thing is how Tick and Leti are both using her. So like Tick wants magic so that he can protect his family. Right. And especially given the fact that they have a newborn baby on the way, he doesn't. I mean, I think he has like a line in the episode where he's talking about like there are monsters everywhere, and I need to be able to like protect us from the monsters of this world. And so we now understand that like his reasoning for wanting magic is, in an interesting way, it kind of parallels the ideology of his father, of Montrose. And we kind of start to see in this episode that they're a lot more alike than they are different. Right. And then Leti also, for the safety of her child, decides. I mean, she originally was like, "Can you make Tick invulnerable?" Yeah. And then she's like, and then Christina said, "No, but I'll make you invulnerable." Mm-hmm. And so Leti ultimately takes the offer, and so there is a little bit of selfish interest there, but I also think that they're just concerned with the future of their family and whatnot, and living in this world that they're in right now. And so like while everyone is sort of coming at it from selfish reasons, I think the show does a good job of like helping you understand where their mental state is. The
motives are there.
Yeah, the motives. Yeah. They're so strong because we've seen them in situations. Like we've seen Ruby go into the department store and try and get a job and try and get somewhere in the world as herself. Mm-hmm. But it's incredibly difficult for her to do that. And so we understand why she why she wants the ability to have magic and whatnot. And then obviously Tick and Leti from like a family standpoint and whatnot. So I don't know, the film is just doing a really good job of like, carrying over this notion that like magic will cure everything, when in reality that's not the case,
Yeah, I mean, that's a through line that has been pretty true and throughout the entire season, of finding this escapism and kind of putting on this mask of sorts from Ruby or even Tick, and putting away his past and, trying to correct his wrongs. Same with Montrose. Everyone has their thought process of who they are as a person, but then we see the other characters seeing them as they perceive them, right? So I think this show does a good job of just complexing or layering these characters to no one's, good, no one's bad. There are a lot of great characters, which I love about this show, which I also love too. Speaking of, kind of reunions in the show, Gia. She makes a return, man. Gia comes back, and I love when Tick walks up to the house. He just sees the shoes and knows that this is going to be a good conversation with my current lover, my ex-lover, and I just love that Gia made her return, man. I was happy to see her back.
Yeah. Do you, with what's happening with Tick and like Gia coming back and sort of like giving him his future, are you getting like Heroes vibes from this? Like Heroes season 1 vibes? With like
Most definitely.
Yeah, it's like leading up to like the climax, which is going to be like, okay, will Tick ultimately die, right? Is he going to be sacrificed or whatever? Which was just totally reminding me of how like Peter Petrelli sort of leading up is like, okay, you're going to be the guy that blows up and like kills everyone, like kills everyone. Yeah, it was just like a nice little parallel I found there. But so let's talk about Gia. Yeah, because
feel so bad for her. Feel so bad.
This might be my only negative with the episode, because I loved it. She comes in, she's like, "Listen, you're in danger. You're going to die. I have seen your fate. Yada yada yada." Obviously, it causes more of a rift between Leti and Tick, which is kind of annoying because it's like he was in the war. There was like stuff like, be more understanding. He's with you now. He's not with her. Anyways, and then she's like, "Listen, I don't know how, I don't know when, but you're gonna die, and you need to listen to me because I'm gonna help you." And then Tick sort of just like dismisses her, goes about what he's doing, and that's the last we see of Gia. Now, I really hope that is truly not the last we see of Gia. That she comes back in some capacity, because she just got the short end of the stick there, if that is realistically all that's going to happen with her. It just felt so anticlimactic and underwhelming that you have this character that you devoted an entire episode to come back into the fold, reunite with Tick and everything, and it's just she's in it for a very brief scene, and it's not even that consequential because she tells him, and then he just doesn't believe it, and then it just sort of like is left there. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit more of a story to be had with Gia's character, whether it be again seeing her complete her 100 soul journey that she has.
There has to be
with
a
everything.
conclusion.
Yeah,
to that, right?
I don't know if there's like I hope it's not a comic relief, but we all know Tree, the character that claimed they had slept with Leti. He's still out there somewhere. Maybe Gia and Tree have sex, and that's her 100th soul. And then
I would not feel good about that.
Right, that would be a little bit necessarily not a good payoff there. But yeah, no, I think somehow, some way, Gia's going to play into it. Whether it is in some sacrificial way of saving Tick or Leti, or I don't know, transforming into the full fox and fighting a monster. There has to be something still there in that storyline. Some closure for the character for sure. I would imagine she's going to make an appearance, hopefully sooner rather than later. But if it does end on that note with the character, that would be definitely kind of disappointing for sure, because he was such a great. Again, the more I've watched the episode 6, like you had said, it might be your favorite, it might be mine as well. That love story, man, that we saw with Tick, and I'm still, team Letitia and Tick, but that chemistry that Jamie Chung and Jonathan Majors had in that episode was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I'll still say it. I think they had more chemistry than. I mean, I understand if it's definitely more of like a first love situation. Yeah. It's a little more sentimental, but I don't know. In one episode, they were able to make me totally buy into it than they were. Like
it was fantastic.
It took Tick and Leti like a couple episodes for me to be like, all right, I'm into this. But yeah, I mean, I have to imagine she's going to come back. I mean, like you messaged me and you were like, man, at the end, I really thought that she was going to like swoop in and save the day or something like that. But then we realized that no, it's these monsters. They came back, and I guess Tick, the spell that he did with his father, which I guess I don't really know what that was supposed to do exactly. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to the scene where we see Christina meets with Tick, and she tells him about, it's your intentions and the energy to not disrupt the world and disaster. So she tells him the symbols. He gets the spell, and I guess just the spell is essentially these creatures are going to be his protection, his mark of Cain of some sorts. And now he has some type of control over these creatures that can use them to his advantage moving forward. So I think it's just a spell that just happens to coexist with these monsters that Christina has granted him this ability to have now.
Right. I just think it's great that now he controls the monsters. Like he can dictate his own fate by controlling these monsters to combat the the real life monsters, as we've said many times on here. And so that was sort of like a nice turn of events there. I'm curious as to like how that's going to work going forward and whatnot.
Oh, there has to be some type of big bad other monster, whether it be
Right.
Cthulhu or the octopus monster that we've seen in Lovecraft. I don't know if that's going to reappear. I think that might be something, because if I don't watch the next week's previews, but I remember the initial trailer. There is some big monster that's in front of Letitia and Tick, so I think him having control of his own monsters will fight. We'll see what comes of it. Hopefully it's not just a big CGI fest of monsters fighting each other. Maybe there's some more stakes to it, but
that'd be pretty cool if he was able to just like I guess manifest Cthulhu or something like that, and have him just like wreck God knows what. But no, that part was really good. So let's go back to Christina a little bit and some of the stuff that she's doing in this episode, because obviously we see Leti in the church sort of like praying for the safety of her child and everything like that, but then she's also summoning Christina because she's going to give her the pictures of the pages of Titus. And when she accepts Christina's gift of invulnerability, we see that she is given the mark of Cain, which is basically a side effect of the invulnerability spell that Christina's father created. However, what was it? She said something about he didn't know the full extent to which it could be used, right? It was like,
because
she discovered something that he didn't know.
I know that and this was either episode 2 or 3 where she said that he removed the spell so he can do what he did in episode 2 to kind of get to the Garden of Eden, as we assume. So I'm not sure. Yeah, the extent of that ability, and again that symbol was very similar to what was on William's chest. So and we saw that on William, we thought it was William, but obviously it was revealed to be Christina. So like why did his invulnerability or his Mark of Cain not work for him? So there is more to explore about this spell, the limitations, and if it can be taken away, it could be something forever. So it's really interesting to see where that threat goes with the Mark of Cain.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is Christina hires these people to basically kill her. The interesting thing about that is she asked them to kill her in the way that Ruby was talking about when she was frustrated with what was going on in the world. She described a lynching of a young black man, I believe, right? It wasn't I'm sorry, what's his name again? Emmett Till. Yeah, it wasn't him, but it was another. Was it him?
I thought it was, because again, just with what happened to him, being beat up, being thrown into a lake, I think they, and I'm glad you pointed that out, because I was very confused with that scene. I didn't. There's no subtitles, so I really couldn't hear what they were saying. From what I gathered and what you said when we were talking earlier, that she was kind of recreating this to kind of feel what Ruby was going through, or
because. Yeah. You're right, because Ruby sort of confronts her about that, and she's like, does this bother you? Are you upset about what happened to this kid?
Said, no, yeah.
Yeah, but she said, and it was like really, I mean, obviously we know that Christina's a selfish person and she doesn't really care about what's going on, but this sort of hammered down, and she was like, no, I'm not. And I don't think that you are either, which was the really interesting part of that whole exchange. Because I think there might be a part of it that's true. There's everything, every insult that Christina says, there is, while
a little truth to it.
There's a little hint of truth to it. And so while I don't doubt that Ruby is incredibly affected by what just happened, I do feel that there is a little bit of selfishness to her wanting it to not bother her, there is some part of it, which is why she, transformed into, the white person, and whatnot. So that to me was really interesting. And so, and that's why I was trying to figure out why she decided to, kill herself or be killed in the way that Emmett was. I don't know if you have any weird.
So, and this is just popping in my head. We've kind of alluded to this, that Christina, she didn't have the normal childhood, right? There was a scene in episode 4 or 5 where we see her playing in the streets with kids, playing hide and seek, and we're like, that was a weird scene. But some people are like, well, that's maybe her kind of. She didn't have a childhood, so she's playing with kids. She doesn't find this to be odd. So to me, this might be one of those same circumstances where she doesn't know how to emotionally connect to what Ruby's going through, so she has to recreate that emotion to kind of try to get some human emotion that she hasn't really had throughout her life. And again, we got to remember, she's dealing with magic, so a lot of these earthly things of kids being brutally killed, racism in America, that's below her, because she's wants immortality. She wants to live throughout the rest of the world. So these human level things to her are just so kind of foreign to her that she's trying to, again, this maybe alludes to her really loving Ruby and really caring for Ruby, and she's doing so much so that she wants to recreate her trauma by having herself go through that trauma. So in some weird way, that's her reasons of maybe showing love to Ruby. I don't know.
I don't know, because there was an emphasis on the fact that she had the Mark of Cain on her abdomen. Now the question is, has she always had that? Because I actually asked you, I was like, did we not know that she was invulnerable, or is that something new? Did something happen in this episode where she regained her invulnerability, or was able, or was this a test to see if she could survive it or something like that?
Yeah, because the only thing we've seen so far with her being kind of immortal or protected is episode 2 with the house collapse, and we assume she was still in the house, but she was able to make it out of the house. We don't know where her whereabouts were with the house collapse of Titus's house, and then the scene where Tick points a gun at her. He literally can't shoot her because it was a spell over him. And then again, I don't know if that alludes to just the Mark of Cain, her just having another spell on her. So there is some protection, this kind of shield over Christina that keeps her from getting harmed. So yeah, hopefully there's I don't know if there's only 2 episodes left. I don't think we're going to get the quote unquote Christina episode where it's just like the origins of her as a little girl and where she's come from and how she's shaped into today, but hopefully we get more of an understanding of the kind of the pieces on the puzzle that she's put together, whether it be going back to that scene where she was birthing the creature. And if that creature is like the same creature that we saw Tick controlling, like that she trained that particular creature to be Tick's own project, or if it's, other things that we've seen kind of behind the scenes with Christina, again, her giving her the rock to Ruby to go into Lancaster's office. There's still some mystery aspects with Christina. And I don't know if we're going to get the full exploring this character to see all the kind of mysterious things that she's been doing in the background.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that sequence was like a revelation for her, and maybe it wasn't actually Tick who was able to control the monsters. Maybe it was Christina doing it. I'm less inclined to believe that, but yeah, I don't know. It is really interesting. And this is another reason why I think there might be future seasons, because there's like so for this to be a single season series, there are so many loose ends that would have to be tied up, and I don't know if they can do it in 2 episodes.
I hope they don't pull a Star Wars and give us like a book to explain fill in the blanks. Rise of Skywalker. We got to read this sequel to, maybe this is a marketing ploy for Mark Ruff's follow-up to 2016's Lovecraft Country. We got to read the book to see what happens next. But yeah, I have faith in Misha Green that she's gonna completely again, episode 10 is called full circle, so maybe it's an hour and a half of giving us just the cinematic conclusion to this epic story so far.
Right, yeah. Next week is the penultimate, so hope that is theoretically where all of our questions should be answered. And then episode 10
Rewind 1921, so I think there's going to be some time travel potentially in that episode. We'll see, man.
Well, and does that mean we get Hippolyta again, or no?
You would think so. If there's some time travel involved, she's kind of the the time god of sorts, right? Where she kind of has honed in these powers. She's been gone, who knows how long she's been gone in that timeline compared to us, knowing that it's only been a week. But she could have been training for the last 50 years to be this alien being that controls time. So yeah, it would be a nice little payoff as she comes through, with an afro like the creatures we saw last week, the alien creatures that she saved everyone. We'll see what comes of the Hippolyta storyline and where she's been this whole time.
Right. And what do we think is going on with Captain Lancaster? Like, what does he want the orrery for?
It's still a mystery, man. And I am to assume the scene that we saw him. So I was very, again, playing with time. So we see Captain Lancaster get ripped apart with that creature. He literally takes his arm off. I'm thinking to myself, is this explain why he had that black person's torso? But that was 3 weeks ago. That timeline doesn't make sense. But we know now that there are different timelines. There's this Ori parallel multiverse type of situation. So,
oh man, now you're making my head hurt.
So we still don't understand what that black torso was. Why that man was in the closet. We don't know. There's a lot of mysterious aspects with Captain Lancaster, and I don't know if he's dead now, if he's going to be brought back now, because he's dead. I assume he's dead.
I mean, he was ripped to shreds, right? For sure. I mean, yeah, that is the one thing. Like, I don't care if we don't get Christina backstory. I don't care about some of the other stuff, but like, I need resolution to that, because I truly have no idea what was going on there. And there was a purposeful reason for showing us that, I have to imagine, and especially with him having the black torso. Like, what was the, like? I understand from a symbolic standpoint, but also like we're just like scratching the surface in terms of what their whole goal is. I mean, do they want immortality as well, or is it something a little bit more than that?
The only thing I'm thinking of right now, man, is like, so we know that he wants the Ori. I don't know if he has his own version of it, and he's, again, I'm just alluding to the theories of next week. Rewind 1921. We might see Captain Lancaster has gone through different points of times to disrupt different errors, right? He might have been the one that caused the 1921 riots in Tulsa. He might have traveled in time and caused that. Or again, this might be a little thing, but the guy that Tick threw into the portal, I don't know if that's going to disrupt anything. We don't know if he's still alive or whatever the case may be. So Captain Lancaster is definitely a mysterious character, and hopefully there are some more things to be said about him, his end goal, and what he wants to obtain with the Ori and everything of that nature. So there's still a mysterious aspect to that character for sure.
Yeah, a lot of unanswered questions, but also this episode did start to bring everything together. So I have to imagine that next week is going to be where we get those answers.
Yeah. And another thing too, you know, we talked about it briefly with Montrose and Tick having more in common. It was kind of nice seeing them having a father and son moment, and Tick going to, well, great. We don't know if he's his father, because there was a line that I thought was really interesting that Tick, they were kind of joking when Montrose said he was dyslexic and couldn't read properly. Right. And Tick says, "What else are you hiding from me?" I thought he was going to reveal that, well, I'm not your dad, or your mother and your uncle George are affair. So there is something still to be said about Montrose and who he is and his lies and truths and things of that nature. So there's still that. So this is all making me, there has to be a season 2, man. I don't see that.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think
stories, but
yeah, it wouldn't make any sense at all. I'm trying to find that one quote that he said that was great, like during that father-son moment. Oh my God, it was so good. It was so good. I know I sent it to you, but I can't find it. It was damn it, I can't find it. Where is it? If you have it.
I always thought that my death could come from a white man's bullet or a rope. Magic so much more jazz. Is that the line you're talking about?
Yeah, magic so much more jazz. I was like, man, that is so good. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, we're getting more of his personality. Like, he's feeling more comfortable in his own skin around the people that he loves and cares about. So that was like, to me, I was just like, yeah, I love that. He's like, you know, fuck it. If I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna go out. You know, messing around with magic with my son and protecting my family lineage and stuff.
And that's another thing too, when he said that I will do anything to protect not only you, my son Tick, but my unborn grandson. So it's now, you're now, like you said, you're getting more of Montrose, which makes me think that maybe next week would be 1921. We get that black backstory of him, Tulsa, Uncle George. There's that cousin that we know has the book of names. We still got to remember there's Hannah to kind of conclude.
I was actually about to bring all that stuff. I was going to bring up Hannah and stuff like that and what's going on with her. That's what I'm saying, man. There's so many loose ends that cannot be tied up in 2 episodes. There has to be future seasons. It only makes sense, even if I have to imagine Misha Green has this thing planned out. But I guess before we start to close this out, I do want to touch on just Misha Green's directing, because she directed the hell out of this episode. It was great. She brought the suspense when it needed to be. The horror elements were incorporated great with the Uncle Tom stuff. I thought that obviously, I mean, the way that she staged and then implemented the effects with the body changing and horror elements, there were so many good character moments, probably some of the best out of the entire season thus far. In balancing everyone, she did an incredible job of balancing all the arcs that were going on and giving each and every character the appropriate amount of time throughout the course of the episode. I was very, very impressed with her direction this episode. I'm
right there with you, man. I was just kind of looking through her. We know she's come from she was a creator of Underground, the show that had Jurnee Smollett in it, but she didn't direct any of those episodes. She was a showrunner. She wrote all of the 20 episodes from the 2 seasons, but she never directed one episode. So from what I am to gather, this was her first time directing.
Excellent.
And oh my goodness, that is such a great debut, the directorial debut by her. Like you said, the pacing was there. I think we really haven't fathomed how much was in this 1-hour episode of how they were able to go from Letitia and Leti and Tick and dancing with the love triangle, and then going over to Montrose having a father and son moment, and Christina and Ruby. I mean, there was so much. And then in the forefront is this death of American history of Emmett Till still being kind of the thread line of like trauma and how people deal with death. And this was like an incredible episode by her. If this was her first time directing, man, her future is bright. Not only she's been an incredible writer, but she has an eye. She has that whatever that it factor is that make directors what they are and legendary. She has that in the making for sure, man.
Yeah, I agree, and I hope that she directs one of the next 2 episodes.
That would be fantastic,
in the series. I mean, obviously we could probably look it up right now. I haven't done it, but I mean, she definitely has that eye, and she understands material so well. obviously because she's the showrunner of the show, but but she also knows how to implement it into the actual filmmaking process, which is the thing that impressed me the most. But before we close this out, guys, be sure to let us know your final thoughts and opinions on tonight's episode down in the comments section below. Is it one of your favorites? What are your theories? How do you think they're going to wrap up season 1? Is this going to be a limited series, or do you think we're going to get future seasons? Let's have a great conversation down in the comments section below. Elliott, what are your final thoughts on tonight's episode?
This was a great episode, man. I'm still, the D stuff, like you said, was great to see. I think that was it didn't have the payoff that I was looking for with that character. But minus that, I thought that they did a great job of telling us the story of what Emmett Till meant to not only D, but the Black community, and how each of our characters are dealing with it, but at the same time still propelling the story that we're getting with the magic and the Book of Names and protection, the canes, all that stuff. It's still there. So I thought this episode was one of the best, if not my favorite. It's definitely top 3 for sure. And excited to rewatch it and kind of put the pieces together, maybe some things I missed, some Easter eggs. And I think we'll look back at the 10 episodes of this being one of the more standout moving forward. So it sets the stage for an incredible episode 9 and 10, man. And hopefully things shape up to stick the landing. I have faith in Misha Green that she's going to stick the landing, but I was very impressed by episode 8.
Yeah, I echo everything you said. This is definitely a top 3 episode for me as well. The standouts being, the Gia episode, Ruby's episode, and then this one. This was an episode that was firing on all cylinders and felt really confident in what the show is, just as a series and whatnot. 100%. It just really felt like if you had to pick an episode that you could be like, that is the identity of this series, I would pick this one because it incorporates everything that we love about the show. It's got the monsters and the creatures and like the horror elements. It's got the incredibly powerful and poignant social commentary. It's got all of these like emotional character arcs and everything. And then it's got that style that we love from Misha Green. And so like, the more I think about this episode, the more it just like keeps creeping up to the top of my episode ranking. Man. And I agree. I think that it sets up an incredible penultimate and then season finale that I can't wait to watch. I'm really looking forward to see how they close out this first season. But there you have it, guys. Those are our thoughts and opinions on tonight's episode of Lovecraft Country, episode number 8, titled Jig-a-Bobo. Obviously, there's going to be a lot to discuss in the coming weeks, but we, of course, want to continue this conversation with all of you. So if you haven't done so already, be sure to like this video, share it with your Lovecraft Country loving friends, and subscribe to the FilmSpeak channel so you don't miss out on another review and recap of Lovecraft Country. We publish these every Sunday so that you can join us and have a great chat about tonight's episode. I want to thank Elliott, as always, for joining me on these. Elliott, where can everyone find you?
Yeah, man. Well, again, happy October to everyone out there. It is the best month of the year. It's a great time to be a horror fan of sorts. So very excited for these next 2 episodes, man. But yeah, Griffin's always great breaking it down with you every week of this fantastic show, and I look forward to next week. But yeah, guys, you can find me here on YouTube at Movie Files, talking about the latest movie reviews, TV reviews, live streams about these particular shows and movies. So definitely check me out on YouTube, and then as well as on Instagram and Twitter at Movie Files and Movie Files Live. So check me out.
Yeah, and if you're on that HBO Max kick, he has been recapping all of the episodes of Raised by Wolves. I believe the season just ended, so you can go check out all of his thoughts and opinions on that. You can also like FilmSpeak on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Just search FilmSpeak. And if you like me specifically and you like what I have to say, you can give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. All right, guys, thanks for joining us for this review and recap of Lovecraft Country Season 1, Episode 8. We will catch you back here for the penultimate next week. Take care.